Hello and welcome back to Patrox Radio. I'm your host, Patrox, of course, and today we are going over another company that is part of the Houston CCS Alliance that I wanted to investigate. Today is quite a long story, so we're just going to go get into it. We're covering BASF. So, getting right into it, BASF was actually an acronym I found out for Badisch Anilin und Soda Fabrik, which is German for Baden Anilin and Soda Factory. It was founded by Friedrich Engelhorn on April 6, 1865 in Mannheim in the German-speaking state of Baden. Now, I'm probably saying that wrong. I highly apologize if I do. Though he was originally a goldsmith, an economic struggle after the 1848 March Revolution left him looking for new work. Friedrich had set up a private gas house, which I had to do a little bit of research. That is a specific industrial building where they would make flammable gas for everyday use, to which he sold bottled gas that he made from coal, which was a highly inefficient process, and made a bunch of wasteful tar byproducts. But with it, he would manage the town that he lived in, their streetlights. Through a recent discovery, the use of aniline to create intense dyes came in 1856 from William Perkins. This gave Friedrich an idea. Aniline was found in his tar byproducts of his gas production, so he made a new shop in which first produced the color fuchsia, which is a magenta dye. He quickly grew this company, and he, as he did with his chemists, would get to make other dyes for colors like alizarin, which is a deep red color. I believe it's the type of red fabric color you find often in more antique style furniture or curtains. But they also made the famed methylene blue. There's more than enough videos to go over that you can find on YouTube. They would grow in this company before World Wars and also produce sodium bicarbonate and sulfuric acid. Leading up to World War I and World War II, we got to go to Opal, Germany. 1900. BASF Corporation is manufacturing where you are. As they enter World War I, they begin to lose access to sulfur and begin to make ammonium nitrate as well. Now, a lot of this was used for farming, but because of the growing needs of World War I, this site would also later be a bomb factory, which is going to be a little prophetic for what happens. The end products were often stored together in silos. They were just mixed about. The ammonium nitrate will compact to its own weight, so when you got a silo going up 70 feet in the air, it starts acting like plaster up there. To loosen it up, they actually used a small amount of dynamite, since it was assumed to be more safe than going in with a pickaxe. They knew it was explosive, but due to things that workers did on this day, and lack of knowledge of the chemicals that just weren't available yet, September 21st, 1919, I could not find a definitive number. It leads to discussions that led to actually 1925 called IG Farben from the efforts of 6 chemical companies. One of them is BASF itself, but another, which we may touch on in the future, is Bayer. It's worth going into IG Farben another day as well, but due to time, kind of factors and the amount of research it takes, it's just not worth it in the scope of this episode, because it has to do with a lot of its ties with Nazi Germany and the history around that time, both pre-World War II and immediately after, whenever the company was dismantled by Allied forces. I do want to mention, however, that at the time during Nazi rule in Germany, BASF through IG Farben built what was at the time the largest chemical factory in the world. It was called IG Auschwitz, which was operated with slave labor. Many of these sites also manufactured Zyklon B, the lethal gas used to kill many in the gas chambers at the concentration camps. Now, they built other chemical plants that, you know, these individuals in the concentration camps had to work on. And it was atrocious and it's horrible, but these are things we're going to have to cover later because they're still directly connected with IG Farben as a company entity. But BASF itself was the one who supplied a lot of the processes, the equipment, and the initial chemicals by which they would produce their other more fun things, I guess, if we want to say. These plants and others operated by BASF were vital to Germany, and in being so, they were targeted by Allied forces during bombing runs until the Nazi regime's collapse. The former war economy leader of the Nazi Party, Karl Wurster, would give the company a second chance when he was able to successfully fight to refound the company in 1952 after his acquittal in the Nuremberg trials. There's so much atrocity here. There's so much, fucked up shit to get into. Oh God, it just makes me a little sick. But I felt it was very important to bring about their Nazi past and the roots that may have influenced future decisions, especially when it was a Nazi who was able to, successfully argue for the refounding of this company that was able to produce so much chemical damage, both to the people in the concentration camps through slave labor and their execution, but also on the battlefield against Allied forces. But on that note, let's get into a little bit of facts real quick before we get into some of their recent misdeeds in the last 20 years. At the year end of 2021, the German chemical company BASF had 111,047 employees worldwide in 90 countries. Now, I wasn't able to solidify that number of 90 countries. It kind of waxed and waned a bit on the numbers, but the employee count was consistent from every site I checked. The company's products are varied, ranging from personal care products to petrochemicals to agricultural herbicides and the dyes that got them started. By the end of September last year, they made around 16.4 billion US dollars. Now, just a ludicrous amount of money, but we need to kind of get into their dirty laundry. So I took from the Violation Tracker website, which is violationtracker.goodjobsfirst.org. Highly recommend you guys use that whenever you're looking into companies on your own time to really, figure out their misdeeds and whatnot. It's not like I'm sponsored or anything. I just really think it's a good tool. I took some of the biggest fines that they had to pay and put them in a timeline from whenever they were sentenced or whenever they were penalized by the court or whenever they settled or whatnot. So we're going to go back first to October 11th, year 2000 with the vitamin tax price fixing scheme. So I didn't know about this, but this was pretty messed up. What happened was it was a price fixing scheme hatched and implemented between 6 companies. These companies being Adventis Animal Nutrition, formerly Roan and Pullenc, BASF Corporation, Daiichi Pharmaceutical, Eisai Company, Hoffman La Roche, and Takeda Chemical. 3 European companies and 3 Japanese companies that at the time controlled 80% of the market. Secret meetings happened in a variety of places, including Mexico and Belgium, to orchestrate this plan. Several vitamins, like vitamin A, various types of vitamin B, vitamin C, and vitamin E, along with others, would have their prices artificially raised, and this added expense would be passed on to smaller businesses and consumers. It raised the prices of many household goods, from breakfast cereals to animal feed to beauty products. This lasted for 12 years until a case was brought to the court and they settled. They did pay a settlement with a group of states for the practice and paid $62,258,250 for their part of a $225 million settlement with these states. In California, separately, a day prior, on October 10th, year 2000, they had a separate case filed against them, in which they settled and paid $20,752,750 as their part of the $85 million settlement. So yeah, they artificially raise the prices of everyday workers like you and me for the products that we rely on the most. This was everything from talcum powder to shampoo to the breakfast cereals you eat to a lot of the animal food that you'll buy for pets. If you're a pet owner and you care a lot about them, like I do, they're your family, and there's no question about it. So you're affecting other members of your family with this as well. It's hard to kind of just explain the full effects of that, but the TLDR is that when you have this economic crunch, you either are going to go broke, continue buying the same products, or you're going to buy crappier, worse products that are going to be worse for you, which is why they're cheaper, which can lead to all kinds of issues. But going on to the next one, April 10th, 2005, the Environmental Resource Center, where I got this information, the ercweb.com, was the only place I could find information on the matter since the TCEQ website either moved or deleted their online archive of this specific matter. So ercweb.com had this. Quote, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, otherwise known as TCEQ, announced penalties totaling $2,129,684 against 46 regulated entities for violations of state environmental regulations. Orders were issued for the following enforcement categories: 1 water quality, 15 air quality, 1 industrial hazardous waste, 2 industrial waste discharge, 1 multimedia, 3 municipal waste discharge, 14 petroleum storage tanks, 5 public water system, and 2 water quality. The commissioner also approved 2 air default agreed orders. A large portion of the total figure is a fine for BASF Fina Petrochemicals LP, assessed at $1,944,600 in Jefferson County for air violations. If just for anybody who has no idea where Jefferson County is in Texas, it's on the coast, closer to Louisiana. I don't believe it's quite touching, but it's like within an hour drive of Louisiana. The order resulted from violations found during investigations from 2002 to 2004, and is related to 10 enforcement actions. Violations including episodic release of volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, hydrogen sulfide, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, and carbon monoxide, and failure to follow proper reporting procedures. Half of the penalty amounted will go to 4 environmental projects in Jefferson County, unquote. So that was literally all I was able to find specifically on this, which Texas is noticeably lacking in its care and empathy for the environment and the amount of money that it's willing to fund to this, which makes it hard to research stuff specifically because I have to rely on sites in my state like TCEQ in order to find them. That doesn't mean it's impossible, it just means it's hard. So you got to be diligent if you're going to be like this. But moving on to the next one, we're going to June 11th, 2011. A Swiss subsidiary of the larger BASF corporation, known as Ciba Specialty Chemicals, then known as Ciba Geigy, Geigy, weird name. It's Swiss, so that's probably why. They produce dyes in their New Jersey factory. Between the years 1952 and 1980, they stored 47,000 unlined barrels full of toxic chemicals. These chemicals were byproducts of production in their warehouse if they didn't treat it and dump it just in the Atlantic Ocean. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection in 1980 would require Ciba to remove the barrels properly and monitor the groundwater for any leakage. In 1983, the site would become a Superfund site, meaning that it had heavy contamination and hazardous material and needed to be handled responsibly. Now, the Superfund site is a designation by the EPA by saying that this is a site that has way too much industrial hazardous byproducts and waste that it is severely affecting the surrounding environment and neighborhoods and kind of deal. So there's a bunch of Superfund sites from all across the country. I think you can even find a map that shows you where all of them are and what the nearest one is to you. So the more you know. It was found that the site was heavily contaminated, was heavily contaminating the Toms River and the neighborhoods around it. SEBA was forced by the EPA to clean the site up and groundwater in 1989, and closed down manufacturing operations in 1990. In the mid 90s, cancer rates were rising in the area, and research study done in 1996 found that over the last 16 years, starting in 1979, a year, a year before they were required to remove the barrels, 90 kids would be diagnosed with cancer, which was at the time 23 more kids than expected when compared to the national average for their area. That is just a hair above 25% increase in your neighborhood in cancer diagnoses. This could happen from when you were born at the time to just before you could even graduate high school. You or even a close friend could get cancer because of the careless regard for the planet and our people that was done by this company. When this was discovered, families were outraged, rightfully so, and demanded government investigation. The New Jersey Department of Health and the Federal Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry conducted a study to evaluate the relationship between the environmental exposure and the cases of cancer. It concluded no single risk factor appeared to be solely responsible for the rise in childhood cancer. However, an association was found between prenatal exposure to the contaminated water and leukemia in female children. An association was found between prenatal exposure to the air from the Ciba-Geigy plant and leukemia in female children diagnosed prior to 5 years of age. Ciba, along with two other companies at the time being investigated, would agree in January of 2002 to a multi-million-dollar settlement, but they wouldn't acknowledge any wrongdoing or liability. In the end, 69 families who had been affected would agree, but others still declined, opting for a class action lawsuit. At the time, 15 families had already lost their kids to cancer. 10 years of litigations later, and the families would win their case. $20 million, some direct and others indirect monetary benefits, so that could mean a variety of things. It wasn't worth trying to even speculate what that would be. But this $20 million would be awarded out to the families of the affected community. This wasn't even the first time I found out that Ciba has polluted land and rivers with the area of their operations. I came across a site in McIntosh, Alabama, where up until 1963, they produced DDT, an extremely hazardous pesticide no longer in use. Waste byproducts were dumped into pits on the land that were unlined and across the floodplains of the Tombigbee River. There were 12 inches of topsoil that would need to be removed, but the elevated levels of DDT were still found in surrounding flora and fauna, especially the fish. BASF would later pay $3.2 million in a settlement with NOAA and trustees responsible for land restoration and preservation in the area. So yeah, they are responsible for a lot of damage. Moving on, we're looking at June 27th, 2012. It started as an investigation of a site in Wyandotte, Michigan, back in March of 2008. Numerous violations were found by the EPA, for which they enforced the Clean Air Act to get the site into compliance. On June 27th, 2012, BASF would finally agree to pay a $788,048 penalty and a $250,000 to update or retrofit clean diesel approved engines, which big air quotes on clean, for Wayne County to get them up to code. I would also like to point out that when the announcement was made and the EPA had a spokesperson go out and inform the public about the needs of public health and why laws like the Clean Air Act are necessary, BASF afterwards had their own spokesperson openly try to cover their ass, saying no one's health was ever in any danger from what the facility was doing, and that all the fines were from miscommunication and faulty paperwork, without talking about the leaking issues and the faulty repair jobs. More recent news in the area has also shown that areas around a different site, but is still within the area, has tested positive for PFAS, PFOA, and PFHXS. Now, if you don't know, these are forever chemicals, but the one that caught my eye the most was the one that's like the hexasulfide sulfides or whatever, that last new one I hadn't seen before. So a lot of fun happening, a lot of chemicals being just drained into our soil and rivers. Good to know. It's not like we aren't known as the Bayou City. It's not like we don't have that to worry about. January 31st, 2013. Moving on to the next one. This is taken from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, also known as the EEOC.gov. The website, EEOC.gov, BASF Corporation will pay $500,000 to settle a retaliation lawsuit filed by the U.S. EEOC against Cognis Corporation, which was acquired by BASF in 2010, so 3 years prior to when this lawsuit was taking place. In his lawsuit, the EEOC charged, and the judge later held, that Cognis retaliated against a longtime employee at its Kankakee, Illinois facility in violation of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Cognis had required that employee, as a condition of his continued employment, to sign a, quote, last chance agreement, unquote. That agreement prohibited the employee from filing charges of discrimination with the EEOC, even for events that had yet to occur. Gee, that sounds familiar, but we ain't talking about Trump yet. When the employee informed Cognis that he did not want to be bound by the agreement out of concern about its effect on his civil rights, Cognis fired him. The EEOC brought suit in EEOC v. Cognis Corp. Sorry, I was muttering my words there for a second. They brought the suit in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of Illinois after first attempting to resolve the case through its conciliation process. Chief U.S. District Judge Michael P. Murkowski held in May 2012 that the employee's termination constituted unlawful retaliation in violation of Title VII. With that issue decided, the only question left for the trial was the extent of the employee's damages. The EEOC's lawsuit also alleged that Cognis retaliated against 5 additional employees by forcing those employees to make a similarly illegal choice. Those employees chose to sign a last chance agreement that stripped them of their rights to file charges and seek relief for future discriminatory conduct, rather than be terminated. By settling the lawsuit, BASF has opted not to continue defending against those allegations. Judge McCuskey entered a consent decree resolving a lawsuit on January 25, 2013. The decree provides monetary relief to the victims and requires BASF to report all employee retaliation complaints under Title VII at the Kankakee facility to the EEOC for the next 2 years. So until 2015. BASF must also train a specific group of its employees on prohibited retaliation under the federal employment non-discrimination laws and adopt a new policy informing employees of their rights to oppose unlawful discrimination without fear of retaliation. Furthermore, BASF agreed that it would not require the recipients of monetary relief to keep confidential the allegations and facts underlying the charge, to waive their rights to file a charge with any government agency, or to refrain from reapplying for work with the company. So that's fun. Retaliation against employees is... honestly, it's like daily practice. It's the thing that gets a lot of companies going. If you're in the service industry and if you live in a state with right to work laws, which I like to also say are right to fire laws, um, this happens a lot, but not quite in this fashion. It's usually never with, a specific contract you were forced to sign. But again, this is in Illinois, a very blue liberal state, I believe. Whereas down here in Texas, when you have a right to fire law, you don't even need to go that far. You can just fire somebody and you never have to explain why. Uh, but this isn't covering laws today, so we'll do the research on those kind of laws in the future so people can really understand how out there some of these get. One more case. This is all the way up to 2021. This is September 27th, 2021. You might remember this one. During a New Jersey court hearing, lawyers for the plaintiff alleged that for over 25 years, BASF and their legal team conspired together to hide one fact: talc, used in a variety of products, was being mined in Vermont. From a company called Mtel Industrial. Had a very big problem with contaminating talc with asbestos. So for 25 years, instead of fixing the issue, they lied to the public, they destroyed and withheld evidence, and tried to halt the litigation against them, saying that they couldn't be sued for lying to the victims about the contaminated talc. They were trying to use an argument saying that the litigations were being used unfairly against them, and that the methods by which that the litigations were going should be deemed invalid, which luckily it did not. BASF Catalytics agreed to pay a total of $57.1 million, and their conspirators, the lawyers that were in on it too, Calhill, Gordon, and Reindahl, paid an additional $42.6 million for its involvement in a class action lawsuit after they lost the lawsuits brought by individuals seeking compensation for asbestos-related injuries. And yeah, those were just the big ones. There's, of course, a myriad of list of smaller fines and other issues that we can definitely go into at some point. But these were the big ones. These highlight a history of repeated carelessness for the planet and for neighbors or neighborhoods in the surrounding area. This is a complete lack of consideration for the people and the practice by which they have to deliver their products and services. It's fucked up. It's morally wrong. It's morally bankrupt. It's environmentally hazardous, and it's socially destructive. I find BASF to be an atrocious company with how they do things. And for anybody wondering about these minor subsidiaries, if the larger corporation should take blame, I highly believe in the idea that you adopt all responsibilities and past and future when you acquire companies like that. So I don't care. It's all BASF as far as I'm concerned, and it's all bad. This is second company in, so I'm hoping that it doesn't get worse. But when we are looking later down the line for companies like Dow, Marathon, Phillips 66, I don't know. We will see what happens. But as far as I know, there are a few companies that are a little younger, so they may be shorter episodes. Like Calpine, I already took a quick glance, and a lot of their stuff is very minor. So we may be able to get through Calpine rather quickly. And so if I can find other companies that were part of this, also having a smaller list of crimes and damages that they've had to pay for, I might just lump them in so we can try to get these companies done faster and really dig into more of the meaty material. Unfortunately, I haven't found any additional information on the Houston CCS Alliance as it is, so there's nothing to really update on that for now. But we got to keep getting the word out. We got to keep informing people, and we got to be aware. We got to talk about these things. There's all kinds of things that we don't know because we're not even diligent in learning. So we got to be willing to rely on each other. We got to be willing to be a little uncomfortable. We got to be a little open to learning new things, even if they're boring things, even if they're things that you feel are unimportant to you. You know, we got to be patient with friends that like to argue and think that there's nothing wrong. We got to be open in our approach to learn and how to teach other people of these things. We got to be open to hearing each other whenever there are issues that arise or concerns or lacking knowledge or experience over related topics. Like, we have to figure out the best way to move forward, and the only way to do that is having a strong network of friends and communities that we can rely on. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Feel free to join the Discord. I'm going to start leaving the links for it in my YouTube descriptions. So if you guys are coming from YouTube, I hope you guys have enjoyed the content. Please go to Spotify, where I'm uploading these a week earlier than is appearing on YouTube. It helps out the algorithm for me, and it helps get more people, aware of what's going on. Nothing else to be said. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Know that I love you, and Mama Terra loves you all. Goodbye.
Tongue-tied in the rain, soaked to my toes, got the chills to the bone. Cold stare through the haze, shrill in my voice, and my lungs swell with pain. Call me out by my name, speak to me soft, help me gather my thoughts. Drown it out, plug the drain, turn the record over, it can't be over. Ah, 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 ah. Write me when you get there, to that better place where you can think straight. Send me love if you can, manifest the best of your wildest fantasies. I hope you find what you need. Over the hills, sunsets in the trees, soak in the glorious rays. The sun will be out, beating down on your shoulders. Tie a rope round my waist as I venture into the dark. I'll be back by the time you finally know where you are. Tear my ego apart. We are all we are, and we are all but one. Send me up to the stars. The distance between means nothing to me, or bury me in the sand. After I've done for you all that I can, I'll tell you what I knew, but I've got no concept of what I'll know. Leave a breadcrumb trail for the wind.